He's a United States Marine Corps veteran, a career law enforcement officer, a bachelor's degree holder, master's, and doctorate, and he's dedicating his life to helping first responders and their families. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, their realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Calling us from Montana. Joining us on the phone, we have Jesse Holton, police officer, and this is second appearance on the show for Jesse Holton. Jesse, thanks for joining us today.
No worries. How you doing?
Good. And it's been a long time. You were a guest when we first started this. Robert Greenberg was my co-host back then, and it was a long time ago.
Yeah, a couple years. Time flies.
It really has. And back then, Jesse was, I believe, a corporal with the Brevard County, Florida Sheriff's Department. And when we talked to him, he had this great program where they were taking dogs from the animal shelter, and they had inmates training them to be assistance dogs, therapy dogs for court, for everybody else, and for post-traumatic stress for first responders and veterans. Phenomenal program.
Yeah.
Still exists, though, correct?
Oh, yeah, it's up and running. It's sustainable. They're kicking out probably around 100 dogs a year, used from everything for officers, first responders, veterans with PTSD, to kids with autism. Even the main program was law enforcement therapy dogs that were trained to be given to investigators for free so that they could use them for interviewing child victims and crimes against children. That's expanded to now using them for all victims, adults, elderly, patients, even with suspects. So it's actually grown into a pretty nationwide, and even I think they have 2 in Canada and a couple over in England they're using now. So it expanded, and it got to the point where it was sustainable without me. So I moved on to bigger and better things. Yeah.
So now you're in Montana, and you're a police officer up there, correct?
That's correct. Good old Montana. I love it.
And for a Florida boy going to Montana, if you don't know Jesse, if you didn't hear the first episode, Jesse is was it a Marine Corps veteran?
Yes, sir. Marine Corps vet.
And then you did a career officer in Brevard County Sheriff's Department, left there, and now you're a police officer in Butte, Montana, I believe it is. And
Bozeman,
Montana. Okay. What is it, like 3 cities in Montana?
Yeah, there's I think there's 5 or 6, but it's a wonderful place to live. I tell you what, the people out here and just the environment. And the main reason I moved here was to just find a better place to raise my kids, and to get a different program started. That's always been a passion of mine. So
now this program you're talking about, this is something that I know has been a passion of yours for a very, very long time. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I got out of the Marine Corps in December of 2005. I did tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and my transition to civilian life was not easy. It was a very long, dark, hard road. Even being in law enforcement, it was a very unique experience. And I had gone through the VA for all types of programs. Some worked, some didn't. And I found myself really wanting to get involved with the treatment for post-trauma, TBI, and some of the other injuries that are received, service-connected disabilities for vets. So that's kind of where my passion started. But at the same time, I was in law enforcement, and I got a passion for understanding what PTSD was. So you get diagnosed with this stigma, and that's kind of what it was when I first got out. Was nobody wanted to be diagnosed with PTSD, and I didn't want to either. I was told to go to the VA. I went there. I completed their test, did what they wanted me to do, not planning to go back or not planning to get diagnosed with anything, and then wham, I get smacked with this, you have post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was a stigma at the time. I dealt with issues in the agency that I was working for as a cop. And, I really wanted to know more about it. So I started digging into it and found the interest of research and understanding PTSD. And that kind of led to the passion of let's see if I can start making science better. Because it wasn't, I know the VA took a lot of hits when we first started exploring PTSD with the Iraq and Afghan vets coming back. but they didn't have the information they needed to be able to provide the best quality of services.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is veterans and especially first responders, we don't like to talk about what's going on. And if we do, we're not going to give you the full story.
No, I don't know of anybody who wants to rehash the details of horrific stuff they've been through either.
Absolutely. And that's what a lot of people don't understand about what the VA was going through is you have these service providers who are passionate and they care and they're trying, but because we aren't giving them the information that they need to provide better services, they're just going off what they think or what they know or trying to put together information because they don't know what we've been through. They don't know all of the dark stuff, and it made it difficult. So I started finding passion in not just communicating it, but looking at the research they were using and the types of therapies they were using and kind of giving feedback. Well, this is why this therapy doesn't work, and this is why group therapy doesn't work for some people. And I found a passion for that. So while I was in law enforcement, I went back to school to start looking at that direction, research in PTSD. And that's when the therapy dog thing kind of came on. I got transferred into crimes against kids while I was doing all this research on PTSD.
And I don't know how anybody does that. That investigative field is beyond my capabilities of keeping my sanity, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's kind of why I got sidetracked is I was doing all this research for vets and starting to understand that there was a missing link between the vets and law enforcement as far as the treatment. And then I get thrown into crimes against kids, and it was a whole new ballgame because now I was taking this science and research that I had just learned and understood about what I was going through, and I was seeing it every day in the face of these kids and in the face of their parents and the face of the investigators, the DCF workers, the forensic interviewers. Everybody was facing trauma every day. And that's where I kind of put pause on my veteran first responder research and focused on the crimes against the kids and looking at PTSD and crime victims. And that's where I came up with the idea of the therapy dog program, because the research I had just got done looking at was how therapy dogs help veterans. And it wasn't a feel-good moment that was making the veteran feel great. It was the science behind it. And what I mean by that is the theory of the dog reduces cortisol and it increases serotonin and dopamine in the veteran's brain, which it's a companionship. It's that love. If you have a dog, you know what it means. When you have a bad day, you come home and your dog hits you in the face and you're all of a sudden you get this rush of feel good. Well, that rush of feel good is chemicals. It's chemicals in our body that is a natural reaction. Well, that natural reaction reduces anxiety. It increases communication. And when you increase communication, you can pull information out of that communication that helps better diagnose these veterans. So the therapists were using the therapy dogs to reduce anxiety, increase communication, and then better diagnose and better treat these veterans. So I took that same theoretical concept and said, if we can reduce the anxiety in a child victim and then increase communication, in that communication, we will find better evidence. And out of that evidence, we find better justice. And it worked. Created pilot programs, did the science behind it. It's now nationwide. And that is a perfect example of why we need more research practitioners in the fields.
And it's amazing. This was the impetus for launching the program with the dogs that were all shelter rescue dogs that were trained by volunteer inmates who want to learn new skill sets. And these dogs get placed for free. And it's just a phenomenal win-win program. And I know that when you left Florida, went to Montana, your focus began to change a little bit. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Before we go to break, where can people get more information about the dogs in Brevard County?
So it's Paws and Stripes College. You can just type that into Google, Paws and Stripes College, or go to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office website. They have a phenomenal program there. I love that agency. That I consider that, still part of my home. I'm on a different mission now. So if people want more information on that program, feel free to contact them. They're phenomenal people, and they'll take care of all your needs.
And when we come back, we're going to talk to Jesse Holton about what they're doing in Montana. Some pretty, really cool stuff that you don't want to miss. And he'll tell you parts of his story as well. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Back to our conversation with Jesse Holton. Jesse is a police officer in Montana, former Brevard County, Florida Sheriff's Deputy, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and all-around good guy. I've known Jesse for a couple of years now, and every time we can get together, we do. Jesse, your career took a dramatic change. You left Brevard County, Florida, and went up to Montana. For a guy who's born and raised in Florida and used to the summer and the summer heat pretty much all year round, you're in a totally different climate. I've seen photos of where you're at. It looks absolutely stunning. But you've got a mission. Besides being a police officer, which is a big mission, you've got a serious mission up there in Montana. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a lot of people thought I was crazy. I had 12 years in.
We know you're crazy. There's no thinking about it. We know you're nuts, but that's all right. It's a good kind of nuts.
It's a good kind. It's focused in the right direction. I can say that. So I was literally right in the heart of my career. I was having a blast, and then we came out here for vacation. And it hit me right there. So I had started the therapy dog program. That thing was up and running, and I had gotten it sustainable so that I could walk away from it, so that I could continue on with my career in law enforcement and go up the chain of supervision. And we came out to Bozeman, Montana on vacation, and it hit me right then and there. I had put my work on first responders, PTSD, and identifying issues with not just PTSD, but suicide and occupational stress in general, because it's not talked about. It's serious issues in law enforcement. Yep. We're starting to see the effects of it now. And I started seeing this 10, 15 years ago when I got out of the Marine Corps, and knew that if we didn't start doing something, suicide rates, divorce rates, occupation retention was going to start declining significantly. So, and
it has, by the way. Every agency I know is having problems finding recruiting, getting qualified recruits, and then retaining people. It's a problem nationwide. Absolutely. And I knew that when I was getting promoted and came out here on vacation, I knew that I needed to get back on track and start focusing on getting back into that research and that science and teaching law enforcement agencies, supervisors, command staff, and officers themselves how to deal with the stress and how to make a career out of this job. It's not easy. It's super difficult. Well, we came out here on vacation, and I had never felt such a serene feeling before. I've done a lot of therapies, trust me. I've seen a lot of, I call psychiatrists wizards, but I've been to a lot of wizards to try and get to where I am as far as my mental health status. And I had never felt more comfortable and more at homeostasis than I did when I was sitting in these mountains. And it hit me. I knew that this is where cops from concrete jungles need to come and feel what it's like to be here, to feel what it's like to be normal and back to relaxation and how our bodies are supposed to be in order to understand how we should be on a daily basis and how to get ourselves there when we get off work. And I'm not joking. It was a divine intervention, because we were out here for a week, and I went from staying in Brevard County, having a career down there, to getting hired at Bozeman Police Department, finding a house, putting a bid on it, flying back home, and putting our house up for sale. And we had a full price offer in less than 12 hours. So in 7 days, we went from staying in Florida to moving to Bozeman, Montana in less than a month. And I just knew. I knew that God's permission was going to put me on this path to getting this place up and running. It was meant to be. If it wasn't meant to be, that stuff wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have fallen into place so quickly and easily.
And it was so powerful that my wife, even I was like, let's move to Montana. She's like, we're going, bye. I know what the mission is. She understood it. She's lived it. So when I gave her the idea of let's create a retreat center. It's a week long. We'll rent these cabins out in this beautiful area in Montana, and I will bring veteran officers in and we'll teach them how to do stress management, but won't just teach it to them like everybody else does. There's a lot of groups out there right now that are trying their best to teach officers how to manage stress, but the same thing has happened in law enforcement as it happened with the vets. Is cops aren't talking. They aren't providing the information needed for these practitioners to develop processes that will work and be effective. Well, that's where we're different. We've lived it, we've understand it.
One of the things you hit on right there is I won't talk to people about what I've been through. I'll give you the old scenario. I know you've been through this. You go to a cocktail party or cookout or whatever, and you're invited there, and someone goes, "Oh, here's Jay. He's a cop." And then someone comes up and goes, "Hey, you ever shot anybody?" And I used to be polite, but then I turn around and I give it to them really quick. And sometimes my answer is yes, and a real poignant pause, and I just walk away. Other times I say, "Why would I want to talk about one of the worst moments of my life with a complete stranger?" And that's the real thing. Is I don't want to talk to people who don't understand, who haven't been through it. And even other police, I'm not comfortable talking to them if they haven't been through it.
Yeah, and that's one of the stigmas that is happening between service providers and trainers and law enforcement is they don't know how to explain it in a way that an officer sits back and goes, "Okay, I get it." I don't know how many times I've had officers call me up and say, "I got diagnosed with PTSD. This is bull. How do I get rid of this?" And they called me because they know that I'm diagnosed with PTSD. It's been a stigma on me for a long time, but I don't use it as a stigma anymore. I've found a way to manage it. I know how to treat it. I know what's successful. And they'll call me and ask me these questions. And I'm like, you can't look at it from that perspective. You have to understand what it is and how it affects your body and how it affects you as a person and your family and work and everything. And that's what we do. Is I've developed this curriculum that speaks cop language. And we created a nonprofit. And this all kind of got put together because I had officers that I had helped throughout my career, that I kind of became the ad hoc, off the record peer support guy. Somebody would be having issues. They would call me up. I'd work with them. And this was stuff that we kept between each other. They would get better. Somebody would go to that person and they would point them in my direction. And next thing I knew, we had this whole cohort of guys and gals that were helping each other out, that were finding things that worked for them that may not have worked for somebody else. And they started spreading the word. And a couple of these guys and gals came together and said, "Why don't we create this training program and make it to where we can teach other officers how to climb out of a hole or bounce back from being put in these bad situations?" So that's what we did. We designed the curriculum. We use proven methods, and we do it in a place to where you actually feel the difference. And what I mean by that is our curriculum focuses on understanding the chemical reactions in the body, how cortisol affects us when it comes to fight or flight, how endorphins, which is what cops seem to love, counter-react that. And because we go throughout our day going up and down, it kind of keeps us normalized. But over time, that normalization falls off track. And we don't use serotonin and dopamine like we should be using. We use endorphins. One of the reasons cops love alcohol, subconsciously, that is an endorphin producer. So there's nothing better than getting off shift, having that cortisol rise, and then chugging a 6-pack or a 12-pack, or in my case, a 24-pack of beer when you get home. So we start teaching them ways to understand how to better reduce stress and physically feel normal without drugs, substance abuse issues, risky behaviors.
All the negative stuff. We want to avoid that.
Absolutely. All the stuff that we don't know consciously that what we're doing to our bodies is increasing stress, or we're not relieving it in a proper way. This is just what we've had to do because nobody's taught us how to do it different.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. We are talking with Jesse Holton. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If you're on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app, be sure to look for me and follow me. My name's John, the letter J, Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y. You can also search for at LET Radio Show. That's John J. Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, at LET Radio Show on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app. Your organization, it's called T6 or 10-6. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, it's labeled T6, but it's the whole aspect behind it is 10-6, and everybody knows in law enforcement 10-6 means you're busy. It's a 10 code. Sometimes 10 codes are labeled with a T-6, and the dash is a little EN, so everybody understands what 10-6 is the name of the company. It's 10-6 Advanced Training and Career Development Group.
And what's your website?
It's www.off-shift.com. So just like 10-6 means off shift, off shift is the website. And then we also have a Facebook page.
Be sure to check that out and get more information. One of the amazing things you talk about, and this is a constant topic on Law Enforcement Today's show, and it's a very broad topic when people say PTSD or traumatic stress or PTS. Personally, and I know you know I've talked about this before, I don't like the term disorder. I think that adds to the stigma, and a lot of the stigma is self-induced. If we look at this as an injury, a PTSI, an injury instead of a disorder, and we treat it, like for example, if I ruin my shoulder in a line of duty incident and I have to go to an orthopedic doctor and I go through physical therapy, they say, okay, it's not improving. We try shots. It's not improving. We do surgery, but you have to have physical therapy afterwards. Two things happen. We know we have to follow through the therapy to do what we're supposed to do. It's part of my obligation to get better. Secondly, while we may get a really good range of motion and use out of that injured shoulder, no one I know expects their shoulder to be just like it was before the injury. And that's where I think a big parallel is when it comes to PTSI. If we get this notion in our minds that all of a sudden I'm going to be like I was when I was 20, and none of this bad stuff ever happened, it is not true. It doesn't help. But I can have a rich, full, very happy, productive life if I learn how to do the therapy and do the things I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. And that's, we don't just focus on the PTS part of it. And I get where people say, they don't like the disorder. It is a stigma. And that's just because of the pathway that PTSD has taken as far as, the veteran culture going into the law enforcement first responder culture. What a lot of people don't realize, and what we also teach, is the additional stressors that come on top of PTSD and how there's a spiral effect. And some of the examples I'll provide is there's secondary trauma where you may not have been in a shooting, or you may not have been in a significant incident, but hearing about a brother or sister who was involved in one. Dispatchers are a great example of where secondary traumatic stress comes in, and they often get left out. You have an officer killed in the line of duty, and that dispatcher was on the phone or on the radio with that officer prior to them becoming, the incident occurring. Just because they weren't there doesn't mean that they're not affected. So you have post-trauma stress, you have secondary stress, and then you have the job. And we break that up into 4 different types of stress. You have occupational stress, which is just being a police officer, the responding to domestics, the traffic stops, the high levels of danger that we see every day. You have organizational stress. This is the that all of us have dealt with. It doesn't go away. It's not going away. It's the issues with management. It's the issues with equipment. It's all the other that gets piled up on top of PTSD and secondary. Then you have individual stress. This is the stuff that's outside of work, your finances, your relationships.
Your marriage, your relationships, yeah.
Absolutely. And then you have social stress, and that's societal. That's the stuff we're really experiencing right now with the way that a lot of the media and people in the country are kind of pointing the finger and putting the blame on law enforcement. All of that combined is stuff that we deal with on an everyday. And when you sit back and break it down, even the most common person can go, holy cow, that's just deep. That is a lot of weight that we're putting on the shoulders of women and men in law enforcement. But how do you deal with that? And that's where we teach a lot of methods on how to address each one of those, because I can send you to therapy and have you work on a certain issue that's going on in your life. But if I'm not teaching you how to deal with all of it, that therapy is irrelevant in your life. And it may address one thing, but it's not identifying and addressing the root causes of what's really going on in someone's life. And that's what we teach them how to do. We teach them how to label each one of the stressors that they're dealing with, whether it's irrelevant or not irrelevant, how to handle it, how not to handle it, proven therapies and a process of therapies that they need to go through. And you nailed it right on the head when you talked about your shoulder. You get a shoulder injury, you go through physical therapy to get it back to where it was. Mental health and mental wellness is no different than physical fitness.
Right.
And a lot of people get that confused. They think that because, and I put it in this perspective when I teach it, if you bench press 300 pounds when you were 18 and now you're 45 and you haven't bench pressed since you were 18 years old.
You're not going to be putting up 300 pounds. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. And in order to get there, you have to start working out. And you have to create a regimen, and you have to work out different parts and different muscle groups in order to get to where you were. Mental health and mental wellness is the exact same thing. There are certain things that are going to increase serotonin. There are certain things that are going to increase dopamine. There are certain things that are going to decrease cortisol. We teach all of those methods, just like a workout, so that if you want to get back in shape and you want to feel good, just like if you were going to get back in physical shape, there are things that you have to do to get there. And we teach that. And it's amazing. It is life-changing to be able to see cops look at it from that perspective and go, well, if I'd have known this 10 years ago, I probably would have saved my first marriage and maybe my second.
Yeah. And that's and although we're talking about police when it comes to all these things, these are issues that apply to almost anybody. They get amplified in law enforcement, but you said our firefighters, corrections officers, you mentioned dispatchers, combat veterans, and then people who have been victims of horrific crimes. They're going through this too. Absolutely. And it's all things that we got to find a way to get better at talking to each other about it, number one. And one of the things I love about talking to you is you find the right mix of science, biology, and good old like horse sense when it comes to having these conversations. And that's something that seems to be missing from so many of our academics.
Well, and that's the biggest point about what I do is I went into academia at the same time I'm in law enforcement, and I can translate it. And not only am I helping our first responders understand what's going on, I'm helping the academics find the deep science that they need to develop newer and more innovative tools. And I'm that go-between. I can speak academic. I can speak law enforcement. I can get down deep in the trenches and pull out the information that they need to be able to run whatever analysis or whatever theoretical explanation they want to try and look at. And it works. It works phenomenally. And it's creating these relationships across the country where law enforcement as a culture is kind of lowering their guard and trusting academics. Because let's face it, we get dealt with it every day in the media. They use statistics against us. Mm-hmm. So our natural reaction to academics and statistics is, I can't really say it on the radio, but everybody knows what I'm thinking.
Right. Well, the old saying is there's lies, there's damn lies, then there's statistics. I think it was Mark Twain who said that right. many years ago.
So you can play with it any way you want to. But what we do is we get down to business. Our whole job is to create impact and to change lives and focus it in the right direction. And we find the people that want to help us out. And that's what T6 is all about. It's an amazing process because the officers don't have to pay for anything. Their agency doesn't have to pay for anything. We're a nonprofit. So no matter how big of an agency you are, or how small, we find ways to get officers out here. They get 4 hours of curriculum every morning. We stay at a campground. Go look on our website and see the pictures. This stuff is real. The pictures were taken with cell phones. It's not like we use some high photographer. This is a real place. We stay in a cabin on a lake. All the amenities are there. You name it, we have built it into this week-long process that allows officers to understand what we're teaching and then to physically feel it. They will literally feel their heart rates drop.
We're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Are you looking for great products that can be game changers for people, for their physical health, for their overall well-being, go to letpops.com. That's letpops.com. I take these products. They make a world of difference for me. Better energy. I sleep better every night. Full night's sleep every night. 0 leg cramps and more. Many people will tell you about the wonderful things that these products do for them. Plus, it can be a phenomenal business opportunity. You can help people improve their lives, and for a very small fee, get a complete back end, complete website, 0 inventory, no shipping, none of that stuff. Get full details on our website, letpops.com. That is letpops.com. Back to the conversation with Jesse Holt, and your website, Jesse, is off-shift.com. It's off-shift.com. The name of your organization is T6 Tactical. Give me the whole 9 yards of name.
It's T6 Advanced Training and Career Development Group.
And by the way, for people who are not in law enforcement listening, and there's quite a few, and they're like, this is, fascinating, but what's it got to do with me? Number one, I always say this. In the United States of America, we're very, very lucky. In most parts of the United States, if you have a family emergency of any type, a personal emergency, you can pick up 911 and have a first responder there within moments. Certain parts of the United States, like Alaska or more remote areas, it might be days. But one of the things we don't want is we don't want our first responders there to be suffering, because that's a trickle-down effect. If you have a first responder, a law enforcement officer in our case, showing up overly stressed out, not dealing with all this stuff, got some PTSD issues going on, it's not going to be a beneficial situation for anybody. And then secondarily, we have problems with recruiting and retaining our best, most qualified law enforcement people that handle the emergencies of our communities, and they're valued members, and their services are extremely important. So to lose them before their time doesn't do anybody any good. So this is why it's so important. And lastly, we don't want them suffering at all either.
No, and that's where we focus on a lot of it, is the history and the process of stress in law enforcement. And anybody that's been in this career knows there's like a wave. In your first 4 years to 5, sometimes go longer, everything's a sparkle. Everything that happens is new, it's fun, it's exciting. But what's really occurring is your body is injecting more endorphins than normal because it's new and it's exciting. After that, we call it the burnout phase, from 4 to 10, sometimes 12 years. Officers go through like a lull where things just aren't as fun anymore. And what's really happening is we're getting used to these smaller things, and it doesn't introduce as much endorphins anymore. And we're starting to get overridden with cortisol, which is a chemical process that makes us feel depressed, makes us feel grumpy, it makes us feel low. And that's why a lot of officers get into that part of their career and end up quitting. What's unique about what we do is we teach officers how to not get into that burnout stage, not to get into that lull, by introducing tactics that help them get through the job every day, every week, and every year, so that they don't go into that depression phase. And for example, what T6 stands for is, it is the code 10-6 as in off shift or busy, but it also stands for 10 times a day for 6 minutes. And the way we build that in is, if you're working a 10-hour shift, which a lot of us do, some of them have moved to 12, but if you're working a 10-hour shift and out of each hour you take 6 minutes to take a break from being a cop and watch a funny video on YouTube or listen to some good music, or for me, one of the things I like to do is I have a video of my daughter singing "Yes, Jesus Loves Me," and she's 3, so you can only imagine how sweet that voice is. And I'll listen to that, and it increases my serotonin and dopamine, and it pulls me out of that funk that cortisol has me in from responding to all day.
And so I never knew that the cortisol was an issue. And what you describe is so, it really describes what I went through. There were days in the beginning, especially my first 5 years, where there were literally incidents where I thought my heart was going to pound out of my chest because of the adrenaline and the excitement level. And then I could not get to sleep afterwards. And so what I do, I would go home, especially 4 to 12 shift, and knock down a few beers, which turned into quite a few, which created its own set of problems. For a lot of people, that happens. Then you go through some really bad things and the whole attitude starts to change, where it becomes something to be endured, and you almost become like cynical and very jaded, where it's like you hate everything.
Well, and that's the chemical imbalance. And I hate to put it that way, but that's exactly what it is. Our bodies, as we go through every day with spikes of endorphins, spikes of cortisol, we get thrown off. One of the things that we forget to do is focus on stuff that makes us happy. That is where your serotonin and your dopamine and oxytocin come in. Those are the chemicals that make us feel happy. They make us feel proud. They give us our self-confidence. When we're ignoring those, it's just like a muscle. And that's the best way I can put it, is the more you ignore those chemicals, the less the body's going to produce. So because we go endorphin, cortisol, back and forth over time, and this is where a lot of officers, especially if you're listening, you can kind of look back and go, I can see where things started to shut off with my happiness. And all of a sudden it was either 100 miles an hour or depressed.
Right.
And that's the shift between cortisol and endorphins. And we start leaving out that serotonin, dopamine stuff. And what ends up happening is we're either a go or we're a no. And there is no happiness in the middle. And we bring that home. Our spouses can look at us and go, well, you're never happy anymore. Or you're not happy doing the things you used to anymore. And it's because our bodies haven't produced serotonin and dopamine at levels in a long time. And because of that, when we do something that we used to enjoy, we don't get the same chemical reaction. And it's not fun, or we don't get that same feeling. And that's what's missing, is we need to teach officers from day one how to make sure that they recognize when they're getting into that lull, and to do mental wellness exercises or health exercises to make themselves get back in that position where they're feeling happy and have that serotonin and dopamine flowing again. It took me years. I was an alcoholic. I was drinking probably 30 to 40 beers on a day off, no problem at all. And when I quit drinking, it got rid of the endorphin kick that I had been going after. And it put me in a really deep, dark depression for a couple of years. And that's when I got into the science. If it wasn't for my education and focusing my attention, who knows where I would have ended up, whether it had been bad behavior, drinking again, or suicide.
Yeah. And both of those are horrible situations. Before we close, one of the things you brought up, I think that's really good that everybody listening can use, that 10 times a day for 6 minutes. Recap that one more time.
So, and I learned this a long time ago when I started practicing it. Once I learned the science of what dopamine and serotonin does to balance us out and put us back at feeling normal, I started forcing myself to do things that would make me laugh, that would make me feel happy, that would bring confidence and self-confidence to myself. And I noticed that when I would recognize myself being depressed or going through an issue, I would do this. And I was doing it pretty much once an hour. So that's what I started teaching other officers, is one time an hour, watch a funny video, or listen to some good 80s music, and watch how your mood changes and the chemicals in your body get you back to normal. And then I kind of rolled that into, maybe we should do it 1 hour per shift. And that turned into 10-6, 10 times a day for 6 minutes. Take 6 minutes out of every hour and make it a fun and happy time. And that will allow your body to get back to homeostasis, fight off that cortisol. And if you do that every day, it's just like when you first get back into the gym. The first couple of weeks, it feels like you're not going nowhere. The second couple of weeks after that, it's like, this kind of sucks. But then all of a sudden you hit this amazing increase of strength and ability, and you hit this incline where you just don't want to ever stop working out again. The same exact thing happens with this mental wellness. You start doing these techniques, and at first you don't feel something. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I like taking the break. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And then next thing you know, you recognize it, you use it, and you start having a happier life.
And that's really what it's all about.
It pulled me right out of it.
That's what it's about for everybody. Is we don't want anybody suffering. Certainly not our first responders. And we're going to have you back again for a third episode and talk about things like the correlations between our combat veterans and our law enforcement. A lot of people don't understand that. And to be honest with you, although I know there's a lot of kinship, a lot of similarities, I don't understand it either. But before we go, give people your website address and where they can find more information one more time.
It's going to be www.off-shift.com, or go to our Facebook page, which is 10-6 Advanced Training and Career Development Group. And
by the way, they've got some great photos on your website as well. I've been checking them out, and I think you're really onto something about the mountains that just remembering places I've been to puts my mind in a different state. Jesse Holton, thanks so much for joining us. To have you on anytime, brother. I'll have you back again soon.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.